picture this. It's 274 CE, and somewhere in the eastern provinces, a woman who once commanded kingdoms is now marching through streets she has never seen. Her feet bleeding from miles of pavement beneath her. Her people are gone. Her throne is gone. What remains is this, a procession of thousands, cheering, and her walking ahead of it all, bound in metal so heavy that soldiers must hold it to keep her upright. This is not the end of her story. It's the beginning of something far worse than death. What Rome perfected over centuries was not simply conquest. It was transformation. The art of taking everything a person was, their power, their authority, their dignity, and turning it into public spectacle. For women who wore crowns, this spectacle had a particular design. It was meant to break not just the body, but the very concept of who they were. Today, we're examining the fate of 3 queens who learned this lesson and the legal machinery that made their humiliation possible. Let's start with the law itself, because none of this was illegal. None of it was even unusual. Under Roman jurisprudence, there existed a principle called the law of nations, a framework that essentially stated this: when an army falls, when a city surrenders, everyone inside it becomes property. Not prisoners, property. The moment weapons were laid down, citizenship evaporated. Rank meant nothing. Royal lineage meant nothing. A queen found herself standing on the exact same legal ground as the lowest foot soldier in her army. Roman citizens had protections. Beatings were scandalous things. Execution required process. Dignity was, in a sense, a right. But captives from foreign lands had no rights. They had status only as objects to be held, displayed, disposed of, or sold. The law made no exceptions, carved out no special category for women or the nobility. Ancient legal codes, stretching back centuries, had established this clearly. Warfare transformed status entirely. What you were before the battle had no bearing on what happened next. This created a kind of existential vulnerability. A queen could read Roman law and understand with perfect clarity that she possessed nothing. Not authority over her own body, not the right to refuse, not even the guarantee of a clean death. She possessed only whatever mercy her captor chose to extend, and mercy was not a legal obligation. It was a gift. This is the legal architecture that makes everything that follows actually comprehensible. The Romans weren't being cruel in spite of their laws. They were being cruel because their laws explicitly permitted it. So what did Rome do with these captives? It displayed them. The Roman triumph was not a spontaneous celebration. It was a performance art form refined over centuries. When a victorious general entered Rome, the Senate granted him permission to stage something spectacular. A procession that would run nearly 4 kilometers through the heart of the city, from the open fields at the city's edge through the Forum up to the Capitoline Hill. Thousands lined these streets. Hundreds of thousands watched. It was the largest theater Rome had. The order was precisely choreographed. Musicians came first. Then carts displaying paintings of conquered territories, models of cities that had fallen. Then came the animals, lions, elephants, exotic creatures that symbolized the dominion Rome held over distant lands. And somewhere in this progression walked the prisoners. But not all prisoners were equal. The major rulers, the kings and queens and princes who had actually fought Rome, they walked at the front, still wearing pieces of their royal clothing, still recognizable as the people who had once commanded armies. The contrast was the entire point. You walked past a woman in her golden robes, moving through the street in chains, and something happened in your mind. You understood, without anyone needing to explain it, that nothing was safe. No throne was high enough. No wealth was sufficient protection. The procession moved slowly, deliberately, all day sometimes, so that everyone could see, so that the uncertainty had time to work on you. Because for the captives walking that route, the destination was not guaranteed. Some would be freed. Some would be ransomed. Some would simply disappear. Let me tell you about Zenobia. She was not a minor player in the eastern provinces. She had built something extraordinary, an empire stretching from Egypt through Syria into Anatolia. She had challenged Rome directly, and for a time she had won. Then Emperor Aurelian arrived, and like most things Rome decided to crush, Zenobia lost. What she didn't lose immediately was her appearance. When Aurelian paraded her through Rome in 274 CE, she was dressed for it. Jewels caught the sunlight as she walked, and the chains drew every eye. They weren't ordinary iron restraints. These were massive, heavy, fashioned from gold. The very metal she had once converted into power and wealth was now converted into bondage. She couldn't even walk without assistance. Guards marched beside her, holding the weight of her own captured riches. What the historical records note, repeatedly, is that Zenobia walked through Rome with remarkable composure. She didn't break. She didn't weep. She didn't rage. She simply endured, with a kind of stoic bearing that apparently impressed Aurelian enough that he made a calculation. This woman was worth more alive than dead, so she didn't die. She received a villa instead, somewhere outside the city. She remarried. Her daughters married into Roman aristocratic families. She became something else, a living monument. Rome's proof that even the greatest queen could be integrated into Roman power structures. Whether this was mercy or a more subtle form of defeat, history doesn't quite tell you. But Zenobia spent her remaining years as evidence of something. That Rome had not just conquered her kingdom. Rome had claimed her. But not every queen received that mercy. Some stories end differently. Some end much worse. In Britain, around the year 60 CE, a king named Prasutagus died. He had ruled the Iceni people, and he had done it carefully, maintaining an uneasy alliance with Rome. In his will, he tried something clever. He left half his kingdom to the Roman emperor and half to his two daughters, thinking this balance might preserve his people while satisfying Rome's appetite for control. It was a miscalculation. The Roman procurator in charge ignored the will entirely. He seized everything, all the land, all the property, gone. When the king's widow, Boudica, protested this violation of an agreement, she learned something about Roman law and Roman power that no clever legal compromise could protect against. She was beaten in public, in front of her people, and her daughters, young, unmarried, almost certainly teenagers, were assaulted by Roman soldiers. The violation was deliberate. It was public. It was meant to be seen to demonstrate to the Iceni people what happened when you questioned Rome. The historian who recorded this, Tacitus, wrote about it with unusual directness for his time. He didn't euphemize. He named it for what it was, and he understood, as did everyone else, that this wasn't random violence. It was psychological warfare conducted on a royal family. It was the state apparatus turning brutality into policy. The strategy failed, spectacularly. Rather than crushing resistance, the abuse of Boudica and her daughters ignited something. Boudica raised an army, a massive one. She destroyed 3 Roman cities, slaughtered tens of thousands. Rome nearly lost Britain entirely because of what happened to one woman and her family. Tacitus preserved a speech he attributed to her, in which she makes clear she isn't fighting for political territory anymore. She's fighting to avenge a body violated and a daughter's honor stolen. She ultimately lost that war. Roman legions, better organized and more disciplined, defeated her at some unnamed battlefield. What happened after is silence. She either died in battle or took her own life to avoid capture. As for her daughters, their story simply ends. History records the violence done to them and then records nothing else. They're erased from the narrative entirely. 2 girls brutalized by an empire and then forgotten by it. But for those captive rulers Rome did decide to execute, the end came quietly. Picture the triumph again. The processional route winds through Rome's streets for hours. Crowds celebrate. The general accepts accolades. The captive rulers march, knowing that for some of them, the journey doesn't end when the crowds disperse. It ends much darker. Down the slopes of the Capitoline Hill sits the Mamertine prison, ancient, built into the rock itself. It has 2 chambers. The upper one held prisoners. The lower one, accessible only through a hole cut in the ceiling, served a different purpose. This is where Rome's enemies went to die, away from sunlight, away from crowds, away from anyone who might witness them. After the triumph concluded, certain prisoners would be separated from the others, led away, down into that lower chamber, And there, in darkness, with no audience and no ceremony, they would be executed, suffocated, starved, left to deteriorate over days while above them Rome continued celebrating. Vercingetorix was one of them, a Gallic leader who had nearly united all the tribes of Gaul against Julius Caesar. After his defeat, Caesar imprisoned him for 6 years. 6 years of chains and degradation, before finally bringing him to Rome for the triumph. By then, Vercingetorix had transformed. He wasn't vigorous anymore. He wasn't commanding. He was a broken shell that the crowds could barely recognize as the same man. After the procession ended, he was taken to that prison. Executed. Nothing more is recorded. Jugurtha, a king of Numidia, went down into that same darkness. According to what we know, the terror broke him completely. He was starved slowly over 6 days. His screams echoed through stone while Romans above continued their celebrations. His final words, recorded by those who heard them transmitted from others, asked something like, "How is this bath of Rome so cold?" Simon Bar Giora led a Jewish resistance that refused Rome's occupation of Judea until the rebellion ended with the destruction of Jerusalem. He was paraded through a triumph by the general Titus, displayed to crowds, and then taken away. The execution happened once confirmation came back that he was dead. Only then did the ceremonies end. Not every captive went to execution. Some were valuable alive. Some could be bartered. Some, like Zenobia, simply impressed their captors with a kind of dignity that made them worth keeping as living symbols. But for those who were marked, who had resisted too fiercely or threatened Rome too directly, the triumph offered only temporary reprieve. A few hours or days of sunlight before descending into that lower chamber where time moved differently and ending came slowly. What strikes you, when you look at this from the distance of nearly 2,000 years, is how deliberate it all was. How calculated. This wasn't the random cruelty of an empire that had lost control of its soldiers. This was policy. This was design. The legal structures that permitted it. The triumphant processions that enabled it. The hidden executions that concluded it. Each piece served the whole. The humiliation of defeated rulers, especially women who had wielded actual power, served a purpose beyond punishment. It was a message broadcast through every province Rome controlled. Said, your walls don't matter. Your army doesn't matter. Your crown doesn't matter. Resistance ends in spectacle, and spectacle ends in silence. The stone of that ancient prison still stands in Rome today. Tourists walk past it without thinking much about it. But if those walls could speak, they would tell 1,000 stories of people who walked into light one last time before descending into darkness. Queens who had commanded armies. Kings who had defied an empire. All of them reduced eventually to silence. History gives you the triumphs. The great processions, the generals in their glory, the crowds cheering. What it rarely tells you is what happens after the cheering stops. Where the captives go. What the waiting feels like. What the final chamber holds. These 3 women, Zenobia, Boudica, and so many others whose names we'll never know. They understood something about power that gets lost in the celebrations of conquest. They understood that the worst thing an empire can do is not kill you quickly. It's make you watch your own transformation into a symbol. It's take everything that made you yourself and turn it into evidence of someone else's victory. Which of these queens do you think Rome actually feared the most? Not the one it executed. Not the one it paraded in chains. The one it kept alive, integrated into its own society, forced to watch her daughter's children inherit an empire built on her defeat. That might be the cruelest victory of all.